Hello everyone, I'm live here. So, pulling up the chat, hoping everything's going okay. Just give me a second. And then I'll be able to see everybody's comments once I get the chat going. Hello, hello. How are you guys? What is this all about? I'm going to talk about meeting Neil deGrasse Tyson. I got to do that this past Wednesday, and so that was a pretty awesome experience. So I thought, hello, Side Striker. Hello, everyone. So I'm waiting on people to hop aboard. It's not trolls again. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't change the titles. Here, let me try this again. Let me try this again. So I'm trying this again now. Hopefully I have fixed this. Let me see if I can go live with on Facebook really quickly. I'm pulling up Restream again as far as the chat. So I'm trying again because this was silly. So, all right. Okay, I have fixed it. Hooray! How are you guys doing? Okay. So I thought I would talk a bit about my experience with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Hopefully my audio is syncing up okay with that. Okay. Hello everyone. I'm sorry I got weird with the other one. I'm just like, it said trolls. I didn't mean for it to say trolls. Trying again. So what event was it? It was, he goes on tour across the country, and he talks, this particular talk, seeing all the same science supporting names in the chat. That's awesome. So this particular talk that he gave was 10 things you need to know about the universe, which was really, really pretty cool. Hello, everyone. Hello. So it was really pretty cool to be able to kind of pop up and see what is going on with him, and to be able to talk to him and interact for a bit. I had really good seats. Oh, sorry. That's not what I wanted to do. Science is cool. Yes. So, so what I thought, hello. So what I thought I would do today is just talk a bit about what it was like, kind of, you know, I got to sit on the front, like I was on the second row, and he was just like, you know, right there. It was such a great talk. I do have a Facebook. Oh, okay. Yeah, there are people on Facebook as well as on Periscope. So I stream. So if you're curious, I do stream to 3 different venues. Facebook Live, just recently Facebook Live. So this is kind of like the second stream I've done on Facebook Live through Restream. I finally sorted out how to do it. I also stream on YouTube and I stream on Periscope. So even if you don't have Periscope or YouTube or Facebook, you can always go to my Twitter and just watch the video on your phone that way. So that's, yes, all at the same time. I'm doing this at the same time. The cool thing about Restream of what I'm doing is I actually have a chat box, like I can see. So I can see everybody's chat towards me, and at least on YouTube and Periscope. I haven't sorted out the ones on Facebook yet, but I can go back and respond after my video, is completed. I can always go back and answer questions on the Facebook Live chat because the chat stays there. Yes, I do talk about chat posts that you do not see in there. So that's why when somebody asks me a question, you guys can't see everybody's questions. So that's why I kind of repeat it. I repeat it a little bit in that regard. Yes, I'll shoot you some information about it if you like, and I can tell you how to hook it up, SciStrike, if you're curious. So let's talk a bit about the Neil deGrasse Tyson show. It was a 2-hour talk. He spent 2 hours talking about things, and it's kind of funny because, I have a heavily science background, and so I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm probably not going to learn a lot of new stuff in this, but it was just kind of cool to see how he could deliver the content. He's very funny. He's very upbeat. He swears. He does poke fun at some perspectives, but he does it very lightheartedly. No problem, SciStrike. I'll let you know about that. And I could probably pull up on if you're watching on Facebook, I could probably pull this up on my phone here. See, and the other thing is Twitter, they might ask me questions on there and I don't always see it. But there you go. So, I don't know at all that somebody sent me a message on my phone. I'm like, what is that about? But I could probably pull up Facebook on my phone and try to interact there, but that's like another thing. So if you're on Twitter or if you're on Facebook and I don't see your questions right away, I can answer your questions after the show, at least respond within text. So he talked about 10 things you need to know about the universe. I don't remember all of the 10, if I'm honest, but the talk essentially talked about the size of things when he talks about scientific notation. He didn't go into the nanoscale. He went towards the larger scale because he's not a molecular biologist kind of person, and he doesn't he did talk about chemistry and the most abundant elements of the universe. A lot of his talk was geared toward the idea that people think they're special, and that gives us some kind of dominion over everything else in the world. And I kind of talk about that a bit too in regards to what I do here. We are more the same than we are different, and you can see that on the molecular level. And so it's pretty interesting. I got to talk to him a little bit while he was on stage, which was kind of cool. He was very interactive with kids. There were kids that were in the front row, and when he walked out on stage, this little girl, she couldn't have been more than like 8 or 9. She stood up and just started clapping, going, "Woo! Woo!" And he walks in and he goes, "I got a standing ovation from a 9-year-old. I guess I have to work harder for the rest of you guys." So it was really kind of cool. It was kind of cute because, he seems to work really well with kids. And you can tell that he's been an educator of children, not just children, but also adults. Now, the content in the talks, I would say, for the 10 things you need to know about the universe, it's very high school content. A photon. Yeah, I have people telling me the photon walks into the bar. Yeah. Can I get you A beer. He goes, got anything light? Yeah, he didn't tell jokes a lot like that. He it wasn't like the dad jokes kind of stuff. I tell a lot of dad jokes on these. He doesn't tell dad jokes. One thing he was talking about, so he talked about the scale of the universe. You know, what is $1 billion? What would that look like if we lined up $1 billion? Go to the moon, the back, circle the world, that sort of thing. So he got into trying to show people. Now we look at this little patch of stars, okay? And we see a lot of stars here. Now, let's put that in perspective of like the sun. You know, here's the patch right here. And look at all this other space, you know. So and I liked the way that he went about this. He went from the perspective of going, this is the vastness of the universe, okay? The tree of life. We're all similar, then we are different, you know. Hello, everyone. So we're all similar, then we are different, especially on the molecular level. He showed the modern tree of life, which is that big, super spirally looking thing. It's a giant circle. I can find that for you. I suppose I could do that. Let me go to, wait, hold on, solo. So let me go over here and I can show you a bit of what he talked about. It's actually fascinating. Let's see. All right. So in regards to the tree of life, let me find the modern tree of life. And then I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. He was trying to show us just how small people are in regards to everything else in the world. So let's see. All right, so I'm going to go to the big monitor here and show you just what I'm talking. Well, I want to zoom in. That's not big enough. All right, I'm just going to do this and hopefully you can see it. So here, this is the tree of life that he was showing us. So this is the modern tree of life. And you notice we start out, here's our very first common ancestors. And we kind of move out towards here. This is where people are. We're like this teeny little speck right here. So when we're looking at everything that's ever lived, this is where people are. And he was talking about how some people suffer a little bit of an existential crisis, and it's quite upsetting to them to realize just how vast the universe is, and that, you know, we're so insignificant now. But the thing is we're not insignificant, but when you look at the vastness of space, we kind of are. But at the same time, we have all of these organisms that are so similar to us. And he was trying to get across the point that, yeah, humans, we're different, but we're special not because we're different. We're special because all of us and all of the living things are more similar than we are different. And so he was trying to push across the point that we need to change the idea that being special means different, when being special means we're more similar than we are different. So everything, all of life on our planet is special, not just people. All of life on our planet is special. And so that was kind of what he was trying to get across, in that people feel like they have to have some kind of dominion over other things. And then he talked a little bit about how some people think the world is only 6,000 years old, and you know, and the reason why they think that is because of this inherent need to feel special. But what they're missing the point is that everything is special. Everything is amazing. Funny how some people see the vastness as a bad thing and some see it as an amazing thing. How many people can change their minds about that? I don't. Well, here's the thing. And this is something that I got to do, which was really amazing. With Carl Sagan, for instance, you know, Carl Sagan's quote is, the vastness is only, for small creatures as us, the vastness is only bearable through love. And so that's the thing. Even though we're humans, if we go, well, we're humans and we're alone, he's like, we're not. We have amazing other animals, and we have other living things. We have animals that are self-aware, that mourn and grieve, and they're dead, and show love for other living things. We have these various relationships. Nothing has meaning except the meaning you give it. I can't remember who said that. So that's kind of what he was trying to bring across, was this idea that we've got to stop thinking that humans are more special than something else. But special isn't that we're different and more superior. Special is that we're all special because we're so similar. We're the only things we know in the universe that has this kind of life. But that doesn't mean there's not other planets that have life on it as well. We can't rule out that possibility. And honestly, the likelihood of there being other planets like this is pretty freaking, it's statistically possible. I hope you can get Stanton T. Friedman, Roswell expert, before he is too old or dead, because Neil doesn't believe, says it was a crash test dummies in a weather balloon. A lot to hide just for that. I don't see, I'm very careful about who I interview and talk to in regards to live streaming and my podcast, because there's something to be said about giving a platform to people who push false information. That's not what I do here, and I'm very careful about what panels I'm on, who I talk to, and where I appear for if I'm doing a talk. I'm very careful about that because I feel I don't want to give a platform to a particular group or organization, or even a type of thought, to where they think that I'm giving them a voice and supporting them in some way to where they could reach more people. I don't want to be a pusher of false information. And so that's why I don't have people on my channel or on my show who are science deniers. I tend to not do that because there's no point. Have you ever pondered a discussion with Professor Jordan Peterson? I haven't. Fake science news. Okay, there goes the electric universe then too. Well, I mean, I might take a particular concept and talk about it, but I'm careful about how I talk about a particular concept. I'm not going to berate people. I'm not going to, say things in a way that would damage a person. The flat universe. I get a lot of flack for not going after religious people. I don't do that. That's not what I do here. And I've had somebody in my comments on various videos wanting me to go and, attack creationists. And I'm going, oh, why would I do that? That's not what I do. If somebody wants to know about what evolution is, or the origin of the universe and that sort of thing, that's what I talk about. So I might say there are individuals who think the world is 6,000 years old, or 12,000 years old, or however old they think it is. I'm like, we don't have evidence for that. Our evidence is this. This is what the evidence says. And that's the route that I go about. I don't put a label on it, I don't put a label on things. And that's, Neil deGrasse Tyson has a slightly different approach. It's not that dissimilar from mine. It's kind of similar. He'll say there's some folks who think the earth is 6,000 years old. They're wrong. This is why. But he's not outright attacking a particular group. Half full or half empty. Some people see how the big universe is and are afraid, are overwhelmed by it, and some see the limitless void. Yeah, see it as an open invitation, an opportunity to grow and expand our horizons, ourselves, our whole world. So for me, I saw a lot of similar delivery You know, Tyson's a little bit snarky sometimes. I'm a little bit snarky sometimes. He doesn't engage them. He just tackles their position. Well, that's true, but I don't call out a particular group for thinking a certain way other than like people who think the earth is flat. I say people who think the earth is flat. This might be a problem, but I'm not going to say Muslims who think the earth is this old, or Christians who think the earth is this old, or Buddhists who think that this is how elephants were made. I don't do that. I don't do that because to me, that's disrespectful. And I don't disrespect people. I will say, this is the evidence I have on how elephants came to be. This is the evidence I have on the age of the universe. This is the evidence I have in regards to the Big Bang. This is the evidence I have on how things evolve. I would much rather just say, this is what the evidence is, rather than say, this is stupid for thinking this way, or this is dumb. I don't do that. I don't do that. And I think something that people don't understand, and when I get this podcast episode posted with like Evo PhD, she showed up on my podcast. She's an evolution education researcher. So she works heavily in evolution education. And I spent some time talking with her. I've done educational research. I've taught evolution to science-resistant children and dealt with their parents. I know how to talk to groups that are resistant to evolutionary ideas. And the way that I see people try to do it on the internet, I'm like, that's not how to do it. If what you have to ask yourself, what is your goal? What is your goal? Do I know Jackson Wheat? I know Jackson Wheat. I've appeared on his show a couple of times, and he's appeared on mine, and we've done an audio podcast. He does a good job. Yes, he does a good job. So you try not to use ignorance as a pejorative. Yes. How about Richard Dolan, then someone from the ideology that we know more than they tell us? We know more than they tell us. Are you breakaway civilizations? Truth and hope. I'm not certain. We know more than they tell us. So people who are overconfident in their own knowledge, is that what you mean? Because that's a type of cognitive bias. So with Neil, so I'm going to kind of shift it back this way. With Neil, a lot of the content he had, I would say, is like high school level education science, if not a little bit middle school. But to be fair, having been a teacher in high school education science, there's a lot of people who just don't get it. And it's not because they're stupid. It's because the fact that they aren't taught how to think critically early on. And that's something that we need to start when children are young. They are already critical thinkers. They're already curious. They're already asking questions. They want to know how something is. Now, they'll take whatever you say to them and they'll consider that to be the truth, you know, and then if they hear something different from another person, that can cause a shift. So when I'm talking to, I'd mentioned Evo PhD, you have to bear in mind when you're presenting evidence to a person that contradicts everything they've ever believed in, everything that they've ever known to be true, something that's inherently important to them and they feel is part of their identity, they have to come to the terms of the fact somebody's lied to them. And that's damaging to a person. That's harmful. And I've seen this firsthand when I've had exceptionally smart students who believe the earth was 6,000 years old, or, you know, had these other, they didn't believe evolution at all. They had been told things that were wrong. Smart, straight A kids. You would sit there and you would see, they're like, this makes sense. I don't want to believe this. This makes sense. And you can see that internal struggle in them. But what is lacking with the way people go and attack such arguments is there's no care for that person. And so in the podcast episode that I do of my show, Hey Scientist Mel, hashtag Hey Scientist Mel, and I'll be posting that soon, is with Evo PhD, and how we discuss that when you go presenting evidence to somebody that contradicts everything they've ever known, it's an exceedingly painful experience. And there's no care put into place to help these people cope with that. So as a teacher, so if you're going to rip apart arguments of in particular groups, and you got to, and if it's part of what they've believed, I'm not talking about a sudden belief. I'm talking about part of what they believe for their whole life. You have to take into consideration, you have shifted their paradigm and you've caused an internal crisis in them, and there's no care there. So what is your goal when you engage somebody like that? What is your goal? Do you ultimately, what is it you're trying to do? I'm not trying to cause pain for people. I'm trying to say, this is the evidence. I'm a safe person you can talk to. I'm not going to make fun of you. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to help you. And if you want to learn more, I'm here to help. That is my position. That's why I just don't go attacking people. How was meeting Neil? Back to it. It was amazing. So back to the show. He is not a fraud. Neil deGrasse Tyson's a fraud. This is my backdrop for my show. I do have a eclectic group of things, and I have been known to explain genetics and CRISPR with Star Wars figures. So that has happened before. And it's a good backdrop because I'm able to grab things and kind of show how, different interactions. So I did meet Neil deGrasse Tyson Wednesday night. So during the show, I was in the second row. He was walking back and forth, and he told a funny joke about how physicists know how to name things, So physicists know how to name things. Like there was the Big Bang, we had this explosion. So what do we call it? The Big Bang. There's spots on a sun. What do we call it? Sunspots. But it's like he said, don't get me started with chemistry and biology. And then I holler out Latin. And he goes, Latin, yes. And he goes, and you know what? We have better candy bars. We have the Milky Way and Mars bars. And he looked at me and goes, nobody wants to eat a candy bar named deoxyribonucleic acid. And I said, I would. And he goes, and some other lady said, I would too. And he goes, so that's two people. And then he was talking about how he goes to different schools sometimes and he gives lectures. And so when he was talking about how, where do all the smart kids sit in like a Neil deGrasse Tyson lecture at school? The front row. You want to learn about CRISPR with Star Wars figures? You should. I do have a talk on my YouTube and Periscope channel on CRISPR. You can actually go and check it out. So when he was talking about this class that he went to, or this school he went to, and he did a talk, all the smart kids were in the front row. He showed a picture of the asteroid at the KT impact. It was clearly an artist rendering. So I guess as an accountant, I should favor payday as the candy bar. And so he showed this artist rendering by NASA, a scale picture of what the asteroid for the KT impact, the one that took out the dinosaurs, was in regards to size. And he said he was doing this talk at the school, and a kid in the front row, which is where all the smart kids are, goes, is that a real picture? And he said, I know you guys who have been teachers. And I'm like, a former teacher? And he goes, that was a moment where I wanted to drop the mic and walk out of the building. He said, but I wasn't clever enough to go, yes, they dug down in the dirt and they found this old SD card, and then they carried it over to the computer and then they booted up the picture. It's like all the smart kids in the front rows. And he's like, I just wanted to stand there and just keep going for as long as I could until the kid realized, it's freaking dinosaurs. Oh, yeah, there's iridium layers, yes. So, in the KT impact, you can find iridium in that particular crater. So that's pretty cool. What about 100 grand? The candy bar. So, in regards to that, He's pretty funny. Then he talked about the metric system and a joke that just about brought down the house when he was talking about how, we'll buy gallons of milk, but we'll buy like a 2 liter of soda. And he goes, and now our engines are in liters. And he's talking about how we're moving away from the old English, type of inches and gallons and all this to metric. And he goes, and then he showed this picture and he goes, drug dealers have been metric long before we ever were. And the house just was brought down. They were laughing so much. And so he's a really great lecturer. So he's a really great lecturer in regards to that. He's in the content, as soon as we just in all 50 states, the content he was giving, I knew probably 90% of the stuff. I don't know everything, but I knew about the chemistry. He talked about the abundance of elements in the universe and carbon, hydrogen, helium, oxygen, and nitrogen. Those are the most abundant elements in the universe. Well, all of those, except for helium, are found in people. And so that's kind of where he gets the we are made from star stuff. SciShow makes me happy because they use metric. His tickets were anywhere from, I think it was $59 to $250. You love him in Bill Nye too. Can I get 3 tablespoons of weed? It's just like, the people be carrying spoons on their pockets, right? Be like, hold on, man, tablespoon, you want a half a teaspoon, what you want? Oh, I can just see somebody carrying spoons on like their hip. Like that would be a clue if drug dealers were not metric. They'd be using tablespoons and teaspoons. Look, he's got spoons hanging on his side. Let's take him down. We best watch him. He's, oh my gosh. But chefs, they do that. They have their spoon to taste. But it's like, that's what it made me think of. That would be a clue. Oh, I can't get past that thought. That's pretty funny. But Alton Brown carries around a set of measuring spoons. Don't kid in the kitchen. No. 2 spoons, please. Oh, gosh. So Neil is great in that regard. Not to contaminate the food. Yeah, that's fair enough. So Neil is great in that regard. And so afterwards, I got to meet him. Yeah, for tasting. Yes, for tasting. Afterwards, I got to meet him. We went backstage, and I got to talk to him a little bit. Very down-to-earth guy. He looked really tired. And one thing that I loved about him, though, when he was on stage, as soon as he got on stage, he took off his shoes. I thought, that's just awesome. I don't know why I just immediately noticed that he took off his shoes. And I thought, he's going to be standing up for 2 hours. So, he took off his shoes and just walked around, engaged with the audience, high-fived a little girl, He actually had a typo on one of his slides. It was hilarious. And I didn't call it out. No, he wasn't. He was just wearing regular shoes. He is bigger. He's very, bigger than life. So when he was showing this joke on the screen from the New Yorker, it had the caption was at the top instead of the bottom. And so somebody noticed that it was supposed to say, I think it was supposed to say reflection, and he had refection on there instead. He didn't have on heels. Now we're thinking of Neil deGrasse Tyson in heels. Oh boy. So somebody in the audience said, "What's refection?" And he turned around and he looked, and he was like, oh. He said, "Okay guys, so the caption at the bottom wouldn't fit on here, so I had to retype it at the top." He goes, "But I'll go fix it now." And then he walked over, and then he literally on his computer fixed it and came back, and he goes, "And thank you for paying attention to my slides." And then just went right on. Oh my goodness. That was just, and the thing is I make mistakes on my shows here too. I've made mistakes in talks that I've given, in lectures that I've done. And so I'll have like a typo. Sometimes as a teacher, I would do this on purpose. I would have a typo on my slides on purpose. And every once in a while I'd throw it up there, and I would tell my students, if you catch a typo of mine, I'll give you a few extra points or a piece of candy. And so that kept a lot of students looking. And so they'll be like, "Oh, there's a typo." I'm like, "Would you like some points or candy? I want some chocolate." And so you're just testing people, Mel. He is a perfectionist. Look how long he bothered James Cameron about stars being wrong in Titanic. He talked about Armageddon being like the single film that manages to break physics like every other minute. So that was pretty fun. He talks about how the earth wants to kill you. He's like, Mother Earth is so loving and stuff. And he goes, well, if you're in the right climate where you're supposed to be, it's fine. But if you go like to the Arctic and you don't have fire or clothes or anything, then it becomes very problematic. The earth and the universe is trying to kill you. We have all of these things that try to wipe us out. That's why we have natural selection. We have to overcome the very things that are trying to kill us. And so that's pretty interesting. But when I got to go backstage, and I walked backstage, and I got over towards him, and I got to talk to him for a little bit. I talked to him about, and I told him from one science communicator to another, "It is an honor to meet you, sir." And we shook hands. And I talked to him a little bit about what I do, and I told him I just love the fact you're bringing Cosmos back, and I love that you're doing this. And I asked him to do me a favor, and it'll be interesting if he does, and I hope he does. I asked him if he would please tell Seth MacFarlane, thank you from me, Scientist Mel. Thank you for investing so much time and money into bringing Cosmos back. Because I love that show. And when I was a teacher, my kids loved it. It brought so much to my classroom. And and he looked at me and he goes, people don't give him enough credit for that. I'm like, I did. Every time I showed something and the kids were like, wow. I'm like, the Family Guy dude, you need to thank him for this. And so, yes, Cosmos. But that's the thing. People don't give Seth MacFarlane enough credit for what he tries to do for science education. And so I told Neil deGrasse Tyson, I was like, please tell him Scientist Mel. I've tried to tell him on Twitter, but thank you for putting time and money, his own money even. He put his own money into Cosmos. Yes, there is going to be a second season of Cosmos. So I said that to him, and he said, okay, I will. And so he told me, he said, so that, I noticed you said you're a former teacher. So that teacher comment about you wanting to just walk right out of the room, I said, so many times. I said, but I'm in industry now. I'm in industry science now. And so I did. Yes, he did a great thing by bringing it back. Yeah, and the Orville, I like the Orville as well. So Seth did do a great thing by bringing that. So another thing I got to have him do, I keep meaning to check. It's a great show. So I have an old hardback copy of Cosmos from Carl Sagan. It's from 1980. We found it in a secondhand store. And so I asked him if he would, because he was signing a couple things. And so I brought this book in the hopes that he would sign it. And I didn't have any of his books with me, but I had this one. You do need to read Carl Sagan. You need to read The Demon Haunted World first. Read that one first. Science is a Candle in the Dark. It's an amazing book and quite apt right now. Very good book. And it's also an audio book if you prefer that. But Cosmos. And so I brought this hardback 1980 publication of, you need a book recommendation video. Sure, I can do that. I asked him if he would sign this for me. And I put it in front of him first, and he went, what book is this? And he opened it up, and he goes, oh, wow. And he just kept going and goes, wow. I said, it's a 1980 edition of Carl Sagan's Cosmos. I said, and I looked at him, I said, we don't have Carl anymore. I said, we don't have Carl anymore, and I would really be honored if you'd sign it for me. And so he did. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Channeling Carl, February 2018. I nearly cried. I almost want to cry right now. So it's like, he just went and he just looked through it. And this was a 1980 edition. Carl Sagan was still alive when this book came out. So everybody else had like paperbacks. Here's your book, Neil. Here's your book, Neil. And I was just like, you know what, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I can probably meet him again another time and have him sign a paperback book of his own. Or I can have him sign Cosmos by Carl Sagan, because we don't have Carl anymore. So that was my thinking. And so everybody else was like, they just kind of looked at me like, oh. I wish I had brought something like that. I recommend anything by Carl Sagan. And I'll tell you why. I've read quite a few books by him. He writes so well. It's easy to follow. It's not hard jargon at all. It's beautifully simplistic, and it doesn't talk down to you. So and that's the other thing I like about Neil Tyson. The content for me, not for everyone, but for me was extremely easy. But that's my background. And I knew I probably would be seeing a lot of high school stuff. And I learned about probably, I knew 90% of it, but there's some things that I didn't know. So that was cool. But I wanted to kind of see how he delivers his content and get a chance to talk to him and say thank you. And I looked at him, I said, please continue to do your good work. And he smiled and he said, okay. And then I just walked off. Gosh, Carl Sagan writes beautifully. He writes beautifully. So here's, let me see. But this is from Cosmos. I don't know if I can read much of this. But, one voice in the cosmic fuse. He quotes a lot of poetry sometimes in his books. But if you've not read any of his stuff, start with The Demon Haunted World. Contact is another great book. It flows so well. And so when I was mentioning Neil Tyson, his content to me is easy, but to other people it would be very difficult to grasp, and I understand that. But the way that he delivers it, it's lighthearted. It's simplistic. It just makes sense, and he delivers it really just kind of fun. And it's not condescending. It's not, I'm smarter than all of you. We all know he's smarter than me. We all know he's smarter than most of us. Like 90% of us. He's smarter. Okay. He's really smart. Hello, everyone. So, but he delivers the content as if, yes, I know this stuff. Yes, I understand that you don't know it. But I'm here to teach it to you, and I want you to learn. And I want you to enjoy it. I want you to see the beauty that I see. And that's kind of how I see a kindred spirit in him, in that regard. Because when I learn stuff, it feels amazing. When I learn something new, or, just the wonder of the universe, and just going, wow, look at this. A lot of people have lost that. And you can see that that's what he's trying to rekindle. And you can see that he just loves talking about it. And I just love talking about it. I'm like, we are on the same wavelength, me and you, sir. Cosmos or Planet Earth, which is better? Well, they're two completely different shows. Cosmos is good if you want to understand scientific concepts. Planet Earth is good if you want to understand the biomes. It's highly specific. Now, in the biomes and animal interactions and types of animal relationships, that sort of thing. It's much more of a biology show. Cosmos touches on just about every aspect of science. Have I watched his Flanders lesson? Oh gosh, I have not. Am I from USA? I am from the USA. So, so I really enjoyed getting to meet Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm going to see if I can pull up some pictures for you. I'm not certain if I can pull them up, but I did post them on my Twitter. So if you haven't taken a look at some of the pictures that I posted, and I did have a few behind the scenes videos that I posted on my Patreon for my patrons while I was there, little snippets here and there. So they got little snippets of stuff of what the theater was like and that sort of thing, and my feelings afterwards and how that was. It was just a phenomenal evening, and it's something that I really needed. And I haven't been to his lectures before because I knew there was stuff. The majority of it was stuff I probably already know because he was lecturing to the general population. It's not to a scientific community type of aspect. But I wanted to see, how does he do it? How does he do it? Because I really wanted to kind of see that. And it was just a fun night. It was just fun. You can't have a talk without the get over it planet. He didn't talk about it. He said, there are 8 planets, get over it. That was so funny. He was so funny about that. And so, but he was really, really nice. And he's a genuine person. I know he was tired, and you could tell he was tired. But he made certain to spend time with people who were meeting him and engage with them and just shake their hand and talk to them and encourage them. He was encouraging people to go to school. He was encouraging little girls to, like, this is a constellation you need to look up when you get home. And I was like, my heart, you know. So he was engaging the kids and trying to get them, you know. And so I thought, just, you know, he was such a sweet guy. He's just a genuine man. And I know he was tired, and you could tell that. But he took extra time with people to, you know, to try to really just kind of get down to it. Good morning. I'm still having my coffee. So I wanted to spend some time today just talking about how he delivers content, how that kind of parallels, and there's some of overlap between what he does and I do. So that was kind of interesting to see. I'm like, I do this too, you know. So that's kind of cool, you know. And it's just refreshing. He didn't mention Elon Musk. He primarily just talked about things that people should have that were basic understandings in regards to the universe. And so he touched a little bit on chemistry. He touched a bit on physics. He touched a bit on, you know, stars and the metric system and the size and scale of the universe. Yes, he does walk a fine line as entertainer and scientist. He was wearing a coat this evening. I would, you know, I would like to speak on a larger scale, like with Neil deGrasse Tyson. He is a great character. You met him once. That's cool. Yeah, Elon put a car in space. You know, and I think I could. I mean, talking is not hard for me. I could easily talk in front of a group of people. I've done talks at university. I've done talks, you know, of course, locally. I've done talks for schools, and, you know, and when I was actually a teacher, that's all I did all day. But when I left the teaching profession, 5 was considered a perfect score. I had a 4. I was considered a level 4 teacher out of 5, and that's only teaching 4 years. I could go back to the teaching profession pretty solidly, as I can teach 3 subjects right now, 3 science subjects. He does sometimes seem a little full of himself, but he probably deserves it. Well, confidence is one thing. Arrogance is another. TED Talk. If I had a TED Talk, what would it be about? Honestly, I talk a lot about cognitive bias here. So I would probably talk a bit, and people are saying, hey, write a book. So I'm going to try to talk about cognitive bias. Just thought it'd be good to mention if someone isn't good at science, there are other ways, like putting scientists together to work on a project. Yes. So I'm going to start writing a book. I think I might do a Kickstarter for it, but if you're a patron, you know, certain patron rewards, you could get a free copy of it when I'm done. So I'm going to start writing a book about cognitive bias and how it affects you every single day. Real life examples of how your cognitive bias can affect your decisions, how it can put you in harm's way, and the things that you don't really take into consideration, that you might have bias there. Bias isn't necessarily bad, but you have to know you have it and keep it in check. And so this particular book that I'm going to write is focusing on the psychological aspects of bias and cognitive biases. And then I will apply that to real world examples and how several biases can come together on one thing, how you can be a victim of predatory behavior from other individuals based on cognitive bias. I mean, I'm not talking about walking down the street and somebody attacking you. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about like mental, like manipulative type of people. This sort of thing. That's what I want to touch on. Why did I stop teaching? Because I went back to school and completed a master's in chemistry, and then I just moved into industry. What difference between an axiom and applying bias? What do you mean? So a bias, all right, an axiom is something, okay, so an axiom is like a statement from the definition. I'm pulling the definition. A statement or proposition that is regarded as being established, accepted, or self-evidently true. All right, so if something is already shown to be true, until you have evidence to refute it, then, you know, it's kind of widely accepted as that. One of the most eye-opening things I've seen is great scientists disagreeing. Oh, it's fun. If you think scientists are all like on board for the same stuff, go to a conference. They rip each other apart ruthlessly. I know X is true because it's been axiomatically proven. You know, if there's evidence that refutes it, that's different. Well, saying that this is how we've always done a thing, that is a type of bias. All right. So I forget, you know, I don't have the term for that, but saying that we've always done it this way, this means it's the correct way to do it, that is a type of bias. How, for God's sake, have Trump for president? That wasn't my choice. So do I mind? I don't mind if you share this video. Go ahead. Share my videos. See, okay, so those of you who are kind of new to my channel, I usually have slides associated with all my videos, and you can go to my website, scientistmel.com, access all the slides that I use on my show, and if you're a teacher, you can use them in your classroom. I don't mind that. Just give me a little credit, you know. Debate in conferences and often bias too. Well, there is overconfidence, you know, where experts think they know more than, you know, than if new evidence shows up. Sometimes they can be overconfident, think they know more than they actually do. That is the thing that you see with experts sometimes. An argument from tradition, I think, yes. Is the talk you went to online? It is not. It was he goes on tour to various cities. He happened to go to this city. So I went and I got to meet him, which is really cool. And he signed my Cosmos book, which was really nice. Is it possible to briefly explain the main difference between cognitive bias and cognitive dissonance? Cognitive dissonance is a type of cognitive bias. Cognitive bias is like a blanket term, okay? So if we say like biology is a blanket term, we can say that genetics is a part of biology. Genetics can also be part of chemistry. Cognitive dissonance is where you refuse to accept evidence because it goes against your very core. And so that can have other biases involved, like confirmation bias. You can have all kinds of other biases that affect cognitive dissonance, but it's a type of cognitive bias. He spelled channeling wrong. I don't care. Neil deGrasse Tyson wrote in my book, and I'm fine with that. But cognitive dissonance, all right? So if somebody, and this is kind of what I was talking about in regards to how I would go about teaching evolution and why I don't necessarily just go rabbit in and start rah, 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 and, you know, because a lot of people see evolution as conflicting with their core belief system. And so cognitive dissonance is extremely painful. Nice teddy bear behind you. Thank you. So when you present evidence that goes against something that's incredibly important to a person, it's painful. And so if they accept that, then that means they have to go through a process of grieving. So it's easier just to not accept it and go searching for something that shows that what they believe is true. So you can see confirmation bias show up because of cognitive dissonance. So when I write this book, I'm going to devote time every week to write this book to talk about cognitive biases, how they affect our decision making, how they can be painful, how they can be harmful to you in the long run, and what you can do to try to keep it in check. What can you do to kind of boost your critical thinking to where you don't become self-harming? Because you can open yourself up to predatory, manipulative people, and they are there. Now, it's not your fault if they hurt you. Okay, let me make that plain. It is not anybody's fault if they're a victim of a manipulative person. It is the fault of the person that manipulates them. It's not their fault. But there are ways to use critical thinking and to acknowledge that you might be susceptible to certain type of biases in order to keep that in check. So yeah, that's going to be kind of what my book is about. Cognitive biases, how they affect you in daily life, how they can affect you in the long run, and how you can actually put yourself in harm's way if you allow yourself to let your biases go unchecked. One of those things is believing Russian bots. I witnessed disagreement conversation between Dr. Virginia Kimball and Dr. Robert Kirshner over astrophysics. It is fun to watch scientists kind of go toe to toe. But there's no evidence for this. But there's no evidence for this. Well, this is the evidence I have. Do you have any to refute that? Well, I don't have any to refute this, but this kind of goes along the same lines. And you just go back and forth. You know, it's just, and after a while, sometimes they can be jerks. There are some scientists who can be outright jerks. How do you know who is a Russian bot? See, that's the thing. People are learning. They're being conditioned. See, that's another thing that happens to people. We get conditioned to recognize patterns. That's a thing. That's another type of bias. Lots of numbers on their Twitter handle. Yeah, I haven't seen very many Russian bots that are like, Marjorie Jones, 21. You know, I don't normally see that. You can test them by asking questions, yes. And so tomorrow I'm going to live stream with Doc Hackenslash. We've had a lot of talks. He and I have had a lot of talks lately about manipulation and predatory individuals. And so tomorrow we're going to talk a bit about sexual assault. So there's a content warning on there. We'll talk a bit about sexual assault. We'll talk a bit about cognitive biases and what goes on with people who manipulate others. And kind of how, and we'll talk a bit about how he feels, you know, as a man, seeing this going on against women, you know, as a good man, seeing this on that happens against women that he knows and that he cares about. So we'll talk a bit about that, the warning signs, and a little bit how to recover if you've been manipulated, and how to learn from the experience so you can kind of recognize those flags again. So there's a lot of egotism in academia. Are you kidding? So you got a call from the Internal Revenue Service yesterday. You owe tens of thousands of dollars in back taxes. I'm pretty certain that might not be a real thing. You've been discovered to be a bot, and I took the red pill. Mine's is builder of world. If your life isn't good, maybe your life and others' mind, you live in others' minds. Oh, okay. Where can we watch the stream tomorrow? It will be on my YouTube channel because it'll be a Google Hangout, and I haven't worked out 100% how to stream this on Periscope or Facebook. So tomorrow on my YouTube channel at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, I will live stream and I will talk with Doc Hackenslash about bias to a degree, and we're going to talk about sexual assault, predatory behavior in regards to like manipulation, how to recover from that a little bit, and how to recognize the signs, and what can you do to recover from that, as well as what you can do to kind of learn from the experience to help you kind of understand how did they get to me, you know. So if this has happened to you, you can watch if you want to just kind of learn. And he's also going to talk about a bit of his perspective as being a good man and seeing and what this does to, you know, in thinking about as a good man, seeing this happening to other women that he cares about, and kind of the thought process associated with that. I think Tony needs a break from drama to discuss serious stuff. Yes. Well, I do, you know, and I did write a piece on sexual assault in light of the Me Too movement, and how a lot of people saw this as a lot of good men were like, what, this is going on? And women are like, this has been our life experience, you know. So this isn't a secret to women. This has been going on for a long time. And I talk about the statistics of that. You should consider joining the STEAM community. Oh, okay. Well, send me a link. So yeah, and I'm trying to talk about more heavier topics. And I do talk a bit about, I wrote an article on scientistmail.com. If you're curious about what my writing style is like, you can have a look there. There may be typos there because I edit my own stuff sometimes, and you know, you get all cross-eyed, you know. So I do talk about white nationalism and the statistics associated with that, to talk a bit about privilege and kind of show how that works. I do talk a lot about women in STEM. I have a whole video addressing that, about women in STEM and why women might be leaving the STEM fields and what the current research says. So yeah, 3 out of 4 women experience it, so it's not just the occasional guy out there causing a problem. See, yeah, now the actual sexual assault is 1 in 6 women in the U.S. Those are the ones that just reported. Those are not the ones that are reported, so the numbers are considered likely to be higher. 1 in 3 women in the world are assaulted, and these numbers don't include harassment. This doesn't include street harassment. This doesn't include harassment at work. It would be much larger than that. So that's why the Me Too movement kind of was like, it's not just sexual assault. It's also harassment, just being harassed. So we'll talk a bit about that tomorrow. Do you think you will have a chapter in your book about bias in science, specifically female scientists? I can. If you have topics, and see, that's kind of what I do here, is I want to talk about what you guys want to learn. So if you want me to address bias in regards to women in the workforce, and also, you know, in male-dominated fields, we could also apply that to woman-dominated fields. You know, a lot of guys get flack for being a nurse or being a teacher. You know, I think there's less of the teacher stigma, and there's a bit more of the nurse stigma. You know. Thank you, Dennis. Great idea. I hope to see you then. You know, tomorrow I'll be doing that. Thinning on his way. Okay. So if there's a chapter that you want me to kind of address, shoot me a message on Twitter, and I'll mark it down. And there may be a lot that overlap, and so the ones certainly that overlap to where I get a lot of feedback on, I'll certainly write a bit about that. So some of the stuff I'll talk about will be a little bit anecdotal experiences from various people, including evidence, scientific evidence, as well as real life examples of how cognitive bias can affect a decision you make. We lost a great male nurse out at our hospital because everyone said as a man, he couldn't do better. See, you know, it's that idea that toxic masculinity is a thing and we shouldn't have it. It's not only harmful to women, it's also harmful to men, and especially in that regard. So that's something that I can kind of talk a bit about tomorrow as well. This toxic masculinity of trying to be this manly man, you know. And let's shoot a list of topics to Doc Hackenslash. I told him I would do that before we have our talk. So we'll have a bit of an idea. So it should be a pretty good, thorough talk. So I hope you guys will be on there. And it'll be on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/scientistmel. So if you're watching me on YouTube right now, you can subscribe and get updates on when I post new things. I stream every week. I pretty much stream every week, and sometimes a couple times a week. I am going to have a new show soon called Spirited Science, where I have various individuals that are scientists, science educators, science enthusiasts, and we're all having the same beverage, and we're going to talk about a science topic. And the beverage will be linked to what we're talking about. So it'll be an adult beverage. So maybe we'll talk about Darwin and have whiskey, you know? So that'll be a thing. So I'm currently writing that up. So, and I'm the only person that works on my stuff other than a few people. Do I sleep? Sometimes. So I think people, they like the content that I generate, and I can't generate as much as I would like. And I'm trying to find people to kind of help coordinate cross content and stuff. So if you're interested in helping me out, that would be great, because I'm the only person who does this. Now, some people will make intros for me, like Gonna Go For It. He makes intros for me and outros, and which is quite helpful because he can't contribute on a financial basis. My patrons, they give me a little bit of money each month. They start at $1 a month, and that helps me keep my website up, keep the lights on, helps me be able to buy things associated for the show, and helps me kind of upgrade to better software and to be able to reach out to more people. And some, you know, and from time to time I contribute their pledges to scientific research. So stuff like that. So I do sleep. Yes, he made your intro too. Yes, he's a very nice guy. He's currently working on my one for Spirited Science. So we're coming up with a logo, and I'll have a different backdrop. So all of my shows will be just, you know, if you follow my YouTube, I won't have a separate YouTube channel for my shows. I'll organize them for you. This backdrop is usually for like my heavy science educational stuff. I have a different one for Spirited Science. So you'll be able to see, you know, be like, oh, okay, I don't want to watch that show. This is the one I want to watch. So that way, and there'll be different intros. So you'll kind of have an idea already about, do I want to watch this or not? And there's also titles. So that'll help you out if you like one particular series, but you're not such a fan of another one. So that way you'll be able to kind of differentiate. That way I don't have to open up multiple YouTube channels, because that's just, man, that's just a lot, you know. But I'm going to hop off here. I've had you guys now for about an hour. It was awesome meeting Neil deGrasse Tyson. And if you get a chance to go to his shows, one of his talks, I highly recommend it. He is a joy to watch. He is a lot of fun. He engages with the audience, and he's a genuine person. He responds to people, and he'll ask them questions, and he'll be like, who here is a teacher? Have you ever had a moment like this? Oh my God, you know? So absolutely go check out one of his shows, and be certain to check out Cosmos. The first Cosmos, I believe, is on Netflix. It should be on Hulu as well. So you should be able to watch it there. And then the second season is coming out soon. And if you're a teacher, and you watch any of my stuff and you want to use my stuff in your classroom, let me know. Or, you know, say, feel free to do it. Just do it. And let me know if you do it. And if there's a topic that you want me to discuss, so you have a video for your kids, just for your kids, hit me up. Hit me up on sciencistmel.com. Hit me up on Twitter. I do Skype into classes if you want. So I can actually Skype into classrooms. If you're a teacher and you get towards the end of the year and you need something to do with your kids, I can Skype into your classrooms. Or at least make a video just for your kids. They can shoot me questions. I'll answer them all and send it to them. So, isn't the first Cosmos really the Sagan one? Yes, the very first Cosmos is the Carl Sagan one. The thing that made why I wanted Neil deGrasse Tyson to sign my Cosmos book is because Carl Sagan was kind of like a mentor to him. So I felt like, can't have Carl sign it. He's not with us. I'll have Neil Tyson do it for me. It's next best thing, right? So I'm gonna let you guys have the rest of the time off for Saturday. I will see you guys tomorrow. So tomorrow, content warning tomorrow. Sexual assault, manipulation type of individuals, how your cognitive biases are affected by that to a degree. We'll hit on that a bit. You like my hair? Thank you. And thank you for hopping on here. Next week, I'll be back here at 10 a.m. Saturday, Central Standard Time with a completely different topic. If there's something you want me to talk about, message me and let me know, and I'll do a video on it. That's just what we do. Usually I post a poll. But I thought this Saturday, today, I would talk about Neil deGrasse Tyson because that was a heck of an experience. And I want you guys to enjoy your day too. Oh, you guys love me. That's sweet. Little heart palpitations, you know. But yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. Just remember, content warning. It might be kind of hard to watch, but it's going to be important, especially from the perspective of a good man who watches this happen to women in his life. So I don't give people my phone number. Anyway, you guys have a fantastic day. And I will see you guys tomorrow.